month born. Well, what if I win? Shay asked. That won't happen. The bird. I am not giving you Batman. Well, then I'm not giving you my food. Fine, Calloway said. You win, you get the bird, but you're not going to win because my bishop takes d3. Queen to h7, Shay replied. Checkmate. At that moment, the door opened, admitting a pair of officers. They marched to Calloway's cell and brought him onto the catwalk, securing his handcuffs to a metal railing. There was nothing worse than having your cell searched. The officers came in with flashlights and long-handled mirrors. They checked the seams of the walls, the vents, the plumbing. They'd roll deodorant sticks all the way out to make sure nothing was hidden underneath. They'd shake containers of powder to hear what might be inside. They'd sniff shampoo bottles, open envelopes, take out the letters, and meanwhile you were forced to watch. I couldn't see what was going on in Calloway's cell, but when his bookshelf was inspected, Calloway flinched. I looked for the small bulge in his breast pocket that would have been the bird, and realized Batman the Robin was somewhere in that cell. One of the officers held up the copy of The Stand and tossed it against the cell wall. "What's this?" he asked, focusing not on the bird that had been whipped across the cell, but on the baby blue tissues that fluttered down over his boots. The officer said something about a write-up, but Calloway wasn't listening. As soon as he was released back into his cell, he ran to the rear corner where the bird had been flung and sank down to the floor. "God damn!" "Calloway," Shay interrupted, "I want my prize." "Not now," I hissed. "Yes, now," Shay said. "A deal's a deal." In here you were only as good as your word, and Calloway knew it. "You better make sure you're always behind those bars," he vowed, "because the next time I get the chance, I'm going to mess you up so bad your own mama wouldn't know you." But even as he threatened Shay, Calloway gently wrapped the dead bird in a tissue. The robin looked half-cooked, its closed eye translucent blue. One wing was bent at a severe backward angle, its neck lolled sideways. Shay reeled the dead robin into his cell. The lights on the catwalk flickered. I've often imagined what happened next. I like to picture Shay sitting on his bunk, cupping his palms around the tiny bird. In the long run, though, it hardly matters how Shay did it. What matters is the result, that we all heard the piccolo trill of that robin, that Shay pushed the bird beneath his cell door onto the catwalk where it hopped, like broken punctuation, toward Calloway's outstretched hand. That night, for the first time in 6 months, I slept through till morning. I woke up rested and relaxed, walked to the basin, glanced up at the wavy sheet of metal that passed for a mirror. Something was different. The sores, the Kaposi sarcoma that had spotted my cheeks and inflamed my eyelids for a year now, were gone. My skin was clear as a river. "Lucius," I heard, a voice spilling from the vent over my head. "Good morning." I glanced up. "It is Shay." God, yes, it is. In the end, I didn't have to ask for a medical consult. The officer was shocked enough at my improved appearance to call Alma, the prison nurse, himself. "Well, your CD4 count is 1250, Alma said, "and your viral load's undetectable." "That's good, right?" "It's normal. It's what someone who doesn't have AIDS would test. I'm sure there's a medical explanation. It's Shay." "Inmate born?" "He did this," I said, well aware of how insane it sounded and desperate to make her understand. I saw him bring a dead bird back to life, and he made wine come out of the faucets the first night he was here." "Okay, I'm going to go get you a psych consult." No, I'm not crazy, Alma. I'm healed." I reached for her hand. "Haven't you ever seen something with your own eyes that you never imagined possible?" Alma walked out of my cell and stood in front of Shay's. "What do you know about inmate Dufresne's condition?" "He can't sleep much," Shay said quietly. "It hurts him to eat." "Well, he's got AIDS, but suddenly this morning that's all changed, and for some reason he thinks you had something to do with it." "I didn't do anything." Suddenly Shay grew animated. "Are you here for my heart?" "What?" "My heart. I want to donate it after I die." He gave Alma a piece of paper. "This is the girl who needs it. I wrote her name down." "I don't know anything about that." "But you could find out? You could talk to the right people?" Alma's voice went soft as flannel, the way she used to speak to me when the pain was so great I couldn't see past it. "I can talk," she said. It's an odd thing to be watching TV and know that it's happening outside your door. Crowds had flooded the parking lot of the prison. Camping out on the stairs of the parole office entrance were folks in wheelchairs, elderly women with walkers, mothers clutching sick infants to their chests. lining the street that led past the cemetery in downtown were the news vans. The reporter on screen faced the camera. Bob, so far there's been no confirmation or denial from the administration that any miraculous behavior has in fact taken place within the state prison. We've been told, however, by an unnamed source, that all of this stemmed from the desire of New Hampshire's sole death row inmate, Shea Bourne, to donate his organs post-execution. Just then an officer arrived, escorting someone we rarely saw, Warden Coyne. A burly man with a flat top on which you could have served dinner, he stood outside Shea's cell. "How'd you make the wine?" he demanded. "You some kind of magician, son? You hypnotized them into believing they were getting something they weren't? I know about mind control, Bourne." I didn't do anything," Shea murmured. "I'm watching you," the warden hissed. "I know what you're up to. You know damn well your heart isn't going to be worth anything once it's pumped full of potassium chloride in the death chamber. You're doing this because you've got no appeals left. But even if you get Barbara freaking Walters to do an interview with you, the sympathy vote's not going to change your execution date." The warden stopped off I-tier, leaving the officer behind. Staring at Shea, he reached inside the neck of his shirt, pulling out a crucifix. He brought it to his lips and let it fall beneath his uniform again. It didn't take a rocket scientist to realize he was suggesting that Shea's antics, or whatever you wanted to call them, were heaven sent. That wasn't possible, was it? Water into wine, raising the dead, healing the sick. I pulled my art supplies out of my hiding spot, rifling through my sketches for the one I'd done of Shea after his seizure. I'd drawn him on the medical technician's gurney, arms tied down, legs banded together. This time, though, I turned the paper 90 degrees. Suddenly, it didn't look like Shea was lying down. It looked like he was being crucified. People were always finding God in jail. What if he was already here? Thank you. So what I'm going to do now is talk to you guys a little bit about some of the really interesting research that I did for this particular book. This is actually an interesting place for me to do an event, because this is the first country outside of America I visited that also has capital punishment. And it's really interesting because when you go to the UK or something, they just kind of look at you like they don't get it. They just don't understand why it's still on the law books. And I don't really know what it's like here for the average citizen and how much is known about what goes on. But in America, nobody knows. Most of capital punishment is conducted behind this black velvet curtain, and it's very secretive. And we really have no idea when executions happen or what's going on. Like I said, different states in America have the death penalty or do not have them. At this point, it's over 30 states that have the death penalty on the law books. And New Hampshire happens to be one of them. Now, that's the state where I live. We have not had an execution, though, since 1979. So there are death row cells in our state prison, and they're filled with moldy mattresses because they haven't had anyone in them for so long. So I did start off by going to visit our state prison, but it was not a particularly exciting visit for that very reason. And I knew that if I was going to write a book about capital punishment, I really had to go see a working death row institution. So I called in every favor that I had with every prison official I'd ever worked with when I wrote a book, because I have written several now that involve doing research in prisons. And I got invited to Arizona, which is another state that does have a working death row with pretty regular executions. And I was flying to Arizona, which was about 2,000 miles away from where I live, when they canceled my visit while I was somewhere over the middle of the country, because they decided that I was the wrong kind of media. I still don't know what that means. But I landed, and I said, I've come all the way out here, I'm going there. And I wound up going to the front door of the prison and knocking and begging to be let into prison, which was different, because most people are always trying to get out. And they did let me in, and they took me first on a tour of the death row facility, which, to be honest, if it's working well, is very boring. These guys are locked up for 23 hours a day. For 1 hour a day, they are allowed out. And you know what, if you guys want to move in, you could, I don't know, kind of slide up the sides, maybe? I feel bad because there are people in the halls. But they are let out for 1 hour a day, and during that hour, they can take a shower, or they can go out into an exercise yard. The exercise yard is about as big as the corner of this room up to the podium. And they have that 1 hour out, but they go individually. So when someone comes out to exercise or to go to a shower, There are no other inmates out. They are escorted by 6 different officers, all of whom kind of surround the inmate and take them out. And it's what's called single